I'm Rachel Lattner with Online Automotive Museum, and today I'm here with Gerry, Gerald, and Janette, and we're going to be talking about the 1965 Triumph TR4. So welcome. Thank you so much for spending some time with us to explain about your vehicle. So Gerry, can you tell me a little bit about how you acquired this vehicle?
This will always be my father, Phil, my dad. His name's Phil. It'll always be his car. He bought it when I was 2 in 1972 and parked it in a barn in 1978 because it just smoked and it's a British car and they're notoriously hard to maintain. And it was not a big deal to my dad. It was just a fun sports car, and he had no problem. Parked it in 78, and then my son in 2019 we're going through this barn and buried under these boxes. I have a picture of it. He looks at me and he goes, "Dad, what's the story with this car?" And I'm like, "Well, that's Dad's car. He's never gonna let it go." A couple of years later, I get an email with cars on a flatbed going out of the barn. I was like, I guess my dad gave the car up. And we've been restoring it. It got us through COVID.
So you are originally from New York, is that correct?
Upstate New York.
And we're in Las Vegas. That's quite a journey from New York to Las Vegas, and not to mention that this car was from
65.
61 to 65, or it was only manufactured for a short period of time?
Well, he bought it from someone in Rochester, New York, who bought it new. So 65 Triumph, bought it in 72. So I think it had a few miles on it when we. And we discovered stuff when we were restoring it that they monkeyed with it a little. We discovered some things.
How did you get it to Las Vegas? What was that process like?
He went and spent a summer in New York, took a gap year around COVID, and stayed with my sister and brother-in-law. And he runs a business in upstate New York called Wilbert's You Pull It, which is it's a big deal, and a Christmas tree farm. He's legendary in upstate New York. And he put my son to work, but he was nice enough to use his flatbed, put it up in his house and stored it for a year while he took it apart and bagged and tagged it.
Wow.
And then we threw it on a truck and brought it out here in 2021. Got here July 2021, and it was COVID then, so we put it in a little tiny garage in our house, suburbs in Las Vegas, and we'd go out there every weekend and tearing it down, started turning into buying parts and building it up, and it really brought us together. It was nice.
Yeah.
Except when he has to go to college in UNR up in Reno, we sent him pictures of what we do, and then he came down this week and worked on the interior, and
came together quick.
He did a lot of it's what we do together. It's amazing.
Really
yeah. And I sent pictures to my dad, and he's just like, "Wow, it looks great."
Yeah. Like
so
a brand
the
new car.
next thing we got to do is when he comes out here to see it and drive it for the first time. I haven't done that yet.
That'll be amazing.
I can't wait.
So do you have a lot of background in restoration, or what's your background? How did you guys end up first try?
She bought me a sign because I made a joke once. But I'm going to start a garage that restores cars. We're going to call it Beginner's Luck Garage. In my garage.
Awesome.
No, I'm a graphic artist. I've done Photoshop for 35 years. So I retouch photos and I paint and draw. But like anything, restoring a car is about craftsmanship.
Yeah.
If you don't care how it goes on. And she keeps me honest, makes me clean the tools and put them away afterwards.
Yeah.
We might not have expertise, but we do have attention to detail.
Yeah. That's really great.
And for a while, it's all we could offer. We probably learned as we went along.
And you have to learn humility quickly. Don't pretend to know something you don't know, because it'll come out in the wash, for sure.
So how did you get parts, and then what was the actual rebuild process like? What did you guys end up actually doing?
I started with the tear down. Just after we had gotten the car, I washed it up before we put it in the garage, and from there I was taking all apart all of these parts that I'd never seen before and working on getting the engine ready to pull out. And I remember confiding with my uncle about what kind of parts I needed to buy for the engine, and we found a rebuild kit online, and that opened the doors to finding all of the parts that we needed to buy online.
There's a lot of Moss Motors, Rimmer Brothers,
We actually
eBay.
have several parts that came from London, from the UK, where the car was originally manufactured. So it's a hint of originality to the car.
Yeah. But I think we both agree. It's not going to be a resto mod, but it's going to be there's just some stuff that came up. We reversed the polarity to make it a negative totally rewired it, put an alternator on it. Generator wasn't cutting it, but it had to have a new radiator with a cooling fan, especially here in the desert.
Yeah.
These things just want ram air.
It came with a copper radiator originally, and that it wasn't going to be enough for this hot desert, and especially with a manual fan or mechanical fan that just spins at idle.
The car engine was originally a four gear, four-cylinder transmission. See, she knows. I struggle.
And the transmission was a 4-speed. It didn't even have the overdrive option.
Yeah, but that's TR4A.
Okay.
So, and we thought, well, let's restore this transmission. And my dad had driven it hard, and the shifting forks were destroyed. And the local place that we relied on as a garage, Atomic, told us we can restore the gearbox, but you can get a Miata 5-speed.
Okay.
Why settle for 4? So we did stuff like that, and we thought, purists aren't going to like it.
Yeah.
But then we took off the old Zenith Stromberg dual carburetors and put on Webers. Purists might not like
I'm
it.
going to say that we have to give a shout out to Atomic Motors.
Yeah,
They
great.
helped us a tremendous amount. They're a local garage. They told us that, gee, these Zenith Stromberg carburetors give us trouble.
Yeah.
We're going to recommend that you put on these Weber carburetors.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You gotta be able to take your
They'll
advice.
take our money.
We watched this
They'll take our
YouTube
payment.
channel by these two guys, Wags Garage. I owe them a debt of gratitude because you can go down to what screw is being used, and we're that fastidious. Which bolt size? And is this a chrome top bolt? I mean,
All these questions
a
that
million
someone
questions.
who's new.
And this restoration of I think theirs was a 62 TR4.
64.
64. It was really close. It was red.
Yeah.
But it was watching him talk about it and do his video.
What about the suspension? And then you mentioned the interior and then the exterior. What kind of modifications did you guys do with that?
Very first thing we did that a lot of seasoned car restoration experts would probably laugh at is we painted it right off the bat.
Wow.
We had gotten everything taken out, and then we shipped it off to Atomic Motors in downtown.
They did the body work. They painted
Fixed
it.
all of the dents, all the scratches, got a beautiful black coat of paint, and I think that it's probably not the first thing that we should have done, but it gave us a lot of hope to go out back into the garage, even when we were over our heads,
Yeah.
to
You'd
see
go out
this
there and be
beautiful
like,
jewel in the
I don't know
garage.
if we can do this, but then
Yeah.
you'd look at it and it'd be filled with hope because it looked pretty. And it's a rookie thing to, because then we're trying not to scratch it while you're pulling out the engine. It was really, in hindsight, it was pretty stupid. But it did keep us,
It kept us motivated, I think.
because we had, some pretty catastrophic. The first time I took it out for a drive, I had installed the alternator. I didn't put the fan on it, so the entire alternator melted, and we had to replace the entire harness.
Wow.
Oops.
It was not
Lesson
my
learned.
proudest. Well, I know now alternators in these cars need fans.
Yeah.
That was great. That was a moment where I thought maybe I'm foolish to do this. I might have to quit. Call it a day.
So Janette, can you tell me more about the engine?
Yeah, my dad was able to come over. My dad and my parents live in town, and my dad is retired, and he came over and would look over and check things out. It was a great role reversal because as a kid growing up, I was always handing him tools, and this time around, he was handing me tools along with advice. So my dad and I put together the clutch and the transmission, and we then, all three of us, got the whole unit into the car. We
did the camshaft and the cam bearings.
Yeah, you did the cam bearings. You and Dad did the cam bearings, but for a while there, I had a calibrated, torqued arm. I didn't even have to measure it. I got to 20 pounds, no problem.
That's amazing.
And it was a lot of fun.
So
You
what
both-
interested you in this vehicle? Because, you have like kind of the personal connection with the family member, and then how did you really kind of just become passionate about it?
This Shelby Museum is a part of my childhood growing up. So my dad has always been interested in cars, and certainly the Shelby Motorsports, that's always been the thing. So when my dad got a chance to meet Carroll Shelby a couple of times, get his
Wow.
autograph, this is like just
Family affair.
yeah, it's just a part of who I am and how I grew up. So
Yeah.
I would help Dad all the time with whatever projects needed to be done on the not fancy cars that they drove, just to keep them going. Timing chains and
Heater. You changed the heater on that
cores
Mustang
and
on
all
Thanksgiving.
kinds of things along the way growing up. So working in a garage is familiar to me.
Yeah.
So when Gerry said that they were going to get the car here. Okay, this sounds like fun. This
Yeah.
sounds like something I can be a part
I
of
lean
too.
on her because she grew up in, a wrenching household. I might have grown up in one, but I was off drawing, painting.
And you said graphic
reading.
design, and then what is it that you do normally?
I teach 7th graders.
Teach seventh graders.
Yeah.
And also, mechanic on the side. That's
yeah,
pretty interesting.
absolutely.
Gets their respect day one. I'll change a camshaft.
And I tell the students, look, I don't know what I'm doing in terms of mechanics. I'm interested and I make mistakes, so I learn from my mistakes.
Yeah.
I think that that's an important part of recognizing that we learn all the time.
Absolutely.
So
Can you tell me any more details about the vehicle in terms of the wheels, the exterior, and the interior?
in terms of the vehicle itself, the exterior, I am not so familiar with the British cars because I grew up in a Ford house, and so it was always about Shelbys and Ford line. The wheels is actually Jer's expertise because the year you spent in New York, you worked in a tire shop.
I was working in a tire shop. I got a lot of experience with the procedures of getting the car connected to the ground, and we have a rusty old pair of painted spoke wheels that weren't going to cut it, so we had to look for something a little bit newer since we wanted to drive it all the time. And
We're going to restore the old silver spokes because they're clapped, but I don't want to be strengthening and tightening and I've had people tell me they're pretty, but one speed bump you're back there, trying to balance those spokes again. So I'll restore them to something like this. We would drive in with the old stuff.
But when it came time to tear down the old suspension and get everything all nice and fluid again, it was quite an effort as all of the components in the front suspension had to go. Got completely replaced, new rotors, new brake calipers, new brake pads, of course. We had brand new springs in it at one point, both the front and the rear. We have coil springs in the front and then leaf springs in the back. It was, the new parts were way too tight and way too new that the car sat way lower than it needed to. So we actually had to refurbish those old springs and put them back in to get it to drive properly.
It was like seeing the old car though. The stance was correct. I'm like, well, don't rush out and buy new parts.
Yeah.
Speaking of buying new parts, you bought a new rack and pinion unit for the front.
Yeah.
It took 8 months for that to arrive. So the process of buying parts and then getting them stretched the project out.
You can work on a car during COVID, but you're going to go through that parts list, back order. We still have parts that we just can't get.
So for the future, what are you planning to do?
There's still plenty of work to do on the interior to get everything finally buttoned up all nice. We have seat reupholstery kits that we have yet to work on yet, but we just finished putting in the carpet this week.
Okay.
And it's made a huge difference. My dad, when I was off at college, the first year that we had the car back, went through the interior with a fine-tooth comb and ground it all down, repainted it so that there was no rust on the surface, and then he put down a layer of aluminum-covered hush mat, is what they call it, to deaden some road noise, but mainly to keep some of that heat out of the cockpit. And so we finally got that carpeted over, and it looks like a real car now. It's really shocking. You go peek over the side of the car, over the doors, and it's not glaring sunlight back in your eyes.
Yeah, silver.
It was
Thank
bright.
you guys so much.
Thank
Thank you
for,
so much.
explaining all that, and it's an absolutely beautiful car. So
Thank you.
can we take it out for a ride?
Let's
do you
do it.
mind?
Sure.
Let's go.
Let's go.
So, Jer, can you tell me a little bit about some of the fun stories you experienced in this process of restoration?
There's one story that comes to mind right off the bat. Is I was taking apart the rear end. I was taking apart the tail lights, and once I had removed the lens, I found out that the original owner of this car, before my grandfather had bought it, had put a spare set of keys taped onto the body underneath that lens, so he could always get a pair of keys if he forgot them or something like that. So I was met with a surprise when I was taking it down. I found another set of keys as a bonus. It was awesome.
And it had, are these the keys right here? Or?
These are the original keys. This is my grandfather's keychain back from the 70s,
Wow.
which is really pretty awesome.
Is your grandfather still in New York, or where is he?
Yes, he runs his own farm. He has a bunch of farm equipment and stuff, and I think that he phased out working on this car, working on his tractors, so that he could keep doing what he's doing out there.
It's pretty unusual to find a family who's worked on cars together. It's not usually like that.
It's definitely brought us all together. Having something to do on the weekends, it's a welcome change of pace for summers out in Las Vegas when you just keep yourself inside and make sure you don't get too hot.
Yeah. Were there kind of frustrating points when you guys were working together, or was everything pretty smooth?
I mean, none of us really knew all too much about working on cars, especially not from such a starting from scratch point as we did here. So we never really got too frustrated about things, thankfully, because we were all learning together. And I think that that's the coolest part to me, is that we really didn't know how to handle this project from the beginning, but being able to consistently chip away at it has been something super enlightening. It's been really nice for our family, I think.
That's wonderful.
And to have an end product that you can actually drive around and have fun with, it's excellent. It's better than I could have ever imagined.
Can you tell me about the Lucas system?
The Lucas electrical system was notorious for these British car owners because it's it's just so spotty sometimes, and I think there's an old joke for British car owners is why did Triumphs have fog lights? And it's because it was light up the tow cable because the ignition system and all of the electrical stuff was made by Lucas, and it was prone to error, prone to malfunction. So when we changed out the wiring harness and everything, we got something brand new, made all nice. Nothing had been sitting at that point, so it was all fresh. And I think that it's done a great deal for reliability. We still have a lot of original parts, like the headlamps are Lucas, I believe, and those are original parts, like I say. Let me think here.
The gauges?
All the gauges are original, yes. The only one that we had to change out was when we rewired the car to negative earth from its original positive earth. We changed out the generator to an alternator, and that required changing from an ammeter to a voltmeter.
Wow. Do you think that you would have been able to do this if you didn't have your family and the support that you did have?
Not a chance. I definitely wouldn't have been able to do it without the expertise that not only my uncle had when I first pulled it out of the barn, but my grandfather had when he was helping us out here in Vegas, my parents with moral support. It's been a total group effort. It does take a village every once in a while.
And you did the interior yourself, correct?
Not myself. I had my mom help me with the cutting all the carpet and insulation to size and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But it came together just this week. It's a big moment for us.
What do you think was the most difficult part?
The most difficult part, I would say, was getting the engine timing and everything like that worked out. We have never worked on a car before. I had never tried getting a car to start for the very first time from a rebuild, and our calculations were way off. So thankfully we were able to confide in a local garage here, Atomic Motors, and they helped us out with getting everything firing in the correct way, getting the timing in the right order, and from there it was started running like a top, and I couldn't be more proud, especially since we all had a stake in it. My mom and my dad did the top end of the engine, and I was responsible for the bottom end with the crankshaft and the wet liner pistons and all the sleeves and everything like that. So to have it all work in harmony, it's pretty metaphorical is the wrong word, but you know what I mean. It's like
Just very like...
it comes full circle for not only us, but for the car as well.
Yeah. And what do you do at UNR? What's your major there?
I'm studying forest management. I hope one day that I can work in a national park. It's been a dream of mine ever since going to tour around national parks as a kid with my family. I love the outdoors. Hiking is one of my greatest pastimes.
So probably will not be able to take this car out into the forest. And
Probably not, but it'll be fun at least to have in the city.
Yes, and then at least when you're out, now you know so much about cars
Yes.
from over there.
Yes, it's one thing to love and admire cars, and I never ever dreamed that I would be able to have worked on one myself, and it's totally another world to be driving around the car that you've spent hours and hours poring over in the garage.
Anything that you're looking forward to with this car in terms of driving it places, taking it places, or in terms of modifications that you're going to do?
I'm really excited to just get to drive it now. We've spent so much time in the before stages, and now it seems so real now to be able to take it out on the road and use it as a car. And I'm excited to one day maybe take it around the Lake Tahoe area up in northern Nevada.
Yeah.
Beautiful area up there, and I think that this would be perfect for it.
Absolutely, in the summer.
Yes.
Do you guys
super
take
thrilled.
it to a lot of car shows or planning to? Or what?
This is our very first car show, and I can't even tell you how nice it is to be out here getting to show it off finally, and what a reception it's had. I mean, I've never expected so many people to be interested in it, and it's just a huge point of pride for my family to be able to show it off finally.
Well, there's a lot of car shows in Las Vegas, so I
Plenty.
really appreciate you guys coming out to see us at Cars and Coffee at Shelby Museum.
It's an honor. Thank you so much for having us and taking the time to ask us about it.
Thanks for spending time with us.
Thank you so much.
And go.
This is Rachel Lattner with Online Automotive Museum, and we'll see you out on the road.